Hello, it's the People Mentor, and today I'm talking to Stephanie Shaw, menopause educator, and I'm really looking forward to hearing loads from her. I know there are a lot of women out there, and I can certainly remember those days, who are really struggling. So I think this is a subject that we will not be going away from because I think it's really important that we give the support that's needed to people in work. So, Stephanie, over to you. Introduce yourself, please.
Well, first of all, Nicola, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. Just quick background. I spent 20 years in corporate America, about 10 years running an education nonprofit, and then I got really sick. So I spent 2 years suffering from perimenopausal symptoms. And once you start to get that hormone imbalance, it feels like everything else goes off balance. So I'll give you more details on that story later on in the episode. But because of the transition that I was going through and the way that I was able to navigate through it, I'm like, man, other women need to know about this. So currently, I am a health and wellness coach, and I also have a podcast called Hello Hot Flash Podcast. And I try to bring experts in that talk specifically about some of the things that I went through and wish that I would have had more information on as it relates to menopause.
Yeah, because I think there's so much that isn't talked about, and there are
Yeah.
so many symptoms, and you think you're the only person suffering that symptom. So it's really great that you're getting experts in as well to support. And it's those little tips that can often make the difference, isn't it? So
It, yeah, that's so true. Like those little tips and hints and tricks, you're like, oh, wait, that one thing has changed my whole day or my whole week or my whole life. So, yeah, I love to be able to share that type of information with women.
yeah, brilliant. So my first question to you is, what inspired you to become a menopause educator? And has the personal experience that you've talked about with menopause, let me get my words out, influenced your work into this
Yeah.
sphere?
Yes, it has 1 million% influenced my work. So everything that I'm doing now, again, I feel like I'm doing now what I wish I would have found someone else that was doing back in 2017. So it was March 23rd, 2017. I was walking down the street in New Orleans. I was about to step foot on a Bourbon Street. Don't know why. I'm like, I don't party or anything, but you're in New Orleans. Aren't you supposed to go to Bourbon Street? So I was going to Bourbon Street. And as I was physically getting ready to walk on Bourbon Street, I felt like I was having a stroke. So my jaw went numb, my body started tingling and so forth. And I was with a coworker because it was a business trip. Before the end of the night, I ended up in two different ERs.
Oh,
And over
goodness.
the course of 2 years, I went to 18 different types of doctors. So ophthalmologist, gynecologist, cardiologist, physical therapist, acupuncturists, chiropractors, a sleuth of naturopaths, a sleuth of different doctors trying to figure out what was going on. I had tests for everything from lupus to Addison's disease. I was getting ready to take a test for something called POTS, but that one I kind of protested. And I ended up at two different world renowned medical facilities. And I also spent over $20,000 out of pocket because at that time, we didn't have healthcare coverage. And a lot of the things that I was doing, the acupuncture and also the more natural things, it was all out of pocket costs. During that time, I had tingling in my hands and feet, auras. So it would go completely black or dark, migraines, headaches, floaters in my eyes. I would have phantom smells like, why am I smelling gas? I call my husband at work, the gas is leaking. He's like, the gas is not leaking. I'm like, yes, it is. Because I was having those phantom smells. So I had a lot of the non quote unquote traditional, and I also have the traditional things too. The mood swings and a lot, tons and tons of anxiety and also some hot flashes as well. So all of that set me on this journey to figure out how I was going to naturally heal my body. I can't take a kid's Tylenol or a kid's Advil or any type of medicine like that. And I also don't want to. I didn't prescribe to that. So I'm like, I need to start digging in deep, researching what is going on in my body and researching how I can get my hormones more balanced. During that process, I'm like, I should get some certifications in this as well because I would love to teach other women how to do this. So that's my story, and that's why I'm here. So yes, it's in 100% alignment with the things that I went through for those 2 years, and now how I help support other women.
So it's very much about eating what you eat, is it? Or is it
Mhm.
more than that?
It's a ton more than that. So initially, that's what I thought. So I had a chiropractor slash naturopath, and he was helping me more on that eating journey. So I had some intolerances to foods that are quote unquote good for you. Intolerance to pineapples, peaches,
Excuse me.
cabbage, no problem, and things like that. So the eating was really important. I had to understand what was right, not just to eat, but what was right to eat for my body. And by taking some simple tests, I was able to determine what those things were.
Right.
Even when I started eating better, there were other layers that I was not aware of. So I didn't realize two people in my life were causing me stress. So the sciatic pain that I was feeling and my inability to turn my neck left and right, so which led to me not being able to drive for almost 2 months, that needed to be taken care of as well, because your cortisol levels, that's a hormone that's impacted as well during perimenopause. My cortisol levels were at 100 all the time. So I had to start to implement, I had to understand what was going on in my body. I had to get to the root cause. Then I had to have some big girl conversations with some people who were causing me more stress. Those relationships are beautiful now, which is, I'm very fortunate. But so I had to work on the mindset piece as well. So it's nutrition, it's the mindset piece, and it's also the exercise, making sure that I was moving my body. I had, before I got really sick, I was exercising or working out for my first 5K. Well, I never ran a day in my life. I don't know why at 48 I decided to run a 5K. That was causing stress on my body as well, and I didn't realize it. So
All
not
right.
only is it just exercise, what exercise is right for you? I have a cousin, she runs all the time. That's really good for her body, but she's run since fifth, sixth grade. For me, that wasn't right. I had to go more gentle with my exercising, stretching, yoga, Pilates, and so forth. So
Mm.
it's not just the nutrition, it's a combination, it's a complete lifestyle change. The way you think, the way you talk, the way you eat, and the way you exercise. And we weave all of that into the courses that I teach.
And it makes total sense, to be honest. So,
Mhm.
as the host of the Hello Hot Flash podcast, what are some of the most common challenges and concerns you hear from your audience regarding menopause?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest questions slash concerns is around like hormone replacement therapy. Should I take it or shouldn't I take hormone replacement therapy? What does that look like for me? Things like that. That
Mm.
becomes a conversation for a lot of women. So we actually did an episode 126, and we had a specialist in, Dr. Mindy Goldman. Is it Goldman or Goldberg? Dr. Mindy Goldman, that was her name, and she came in and she has years and years of experience. So she's able to break down HRT, bioidentical versus compounded HRT, what it does for different people, and she helped walk through the different theories that we may have because of some reports that have been done. So episode 126 was amazing for that particular question. But some of the other questions are around sleep, like how do I sleep better at night? What should I be eating? How can I lose weight? What is going on with this anxiety in my life? Like, how can I calm my nerves? And we talk about all of those different things. What I'm trying to be very, very conscious of is not just having the conversation, but coming up with some practical
Yeah.
solutions that, so if you're listening, you can walk away with, oh, wait, I don't sleep at night. Maybe I should turn off my devices before I go to sleep. Maybe I should dim the room. Or, maybe I should stop reading in my bed at night and read some in another room and make the bedroom just for sleeping and so forth. So we try to give some practical solutions around the questions that folks have.
And that's what people need, and that's very much what I'm about, is practical leadership and management, because um you get told lots and lots of theory, but what does that really mean? When you break it down, how do you actually implement it? And I think that's what people are looking for. So that's really helpful for them. And
Yeah.
certainly, I've always for a long time lately struggled to sleep very well, go to sleep particularly. I'm probably awake for hours. My brain's very overactive. But over the last 2 weeks, I've been listening to a meditation, and then I fall asleep to this meditation. It's brilliant. And then I wake up when it finishes, because I suddenly my brain will sense it's gone, and I switch the phone off and turn it off completely, because I don't really like having the phone in the bedroom. I don't normally do that, but for this,
Right.
I'm having to have it on. But I turn the internet off
Right.
and dim the light, and then I just go straight back into a lovely sleep. And I've been sleeping so much better since I've been falling asleep listening to that meditation. So
Yeah.
you have to find the thing that works for you, don't you?
You're right. That is so smart of you. I do something similar. So I actually there's an app called One Place, and it just has some Christian sermons on there. Most of the people who are there have gone to like Moody Bible College in Chicago, in the United States. So I listen to those at night, and I do the same thing. Like I'll be in the middle of it and I fall asleep. But to me, it also helps with my dreams. It's like I'm not having those crazy dreams anymore, and my mind's not racing anymore. So it adds that level of peace. So I love your option as well, like a meditation or something very calming before you go to sleep.
Yeah,
I also prescribe to essential oils. So I love a good essential oil, high quality. So personally, I use doTERRA, but there's other
yeah,
good oils up there. But I will, if I'm having a really rough day, or my mind's racing because something that's going on at work or what have you, I will put like some carrier oil, so coconut oil in my hand, and then put like maybe one drop of lavender oil and give myself a really good foot massage before falling asleep or before laying down. And
hmm
that helps me sleep as well. So there's some very practical, easy things to do that don't necessarily include taking a pill, or and then if that's what you need to do and the doctor has prescribed that for you, I understand. But if you're in a situation where you want to think of some ideas that may not include that, I think a meditation, just like you said, using that lavender, those are all things that can help. Drinking some chamomile tea before bed is
yeah.
helpful as well.
And also, I can remember being in hospital. I was going through a very traumatic time in 22, and the ward was so busy, and I was so uptight and anxious about what was going on with me. I couldn't sleep. And then I just decided I'm going to download some, is it I can't ever say the word, Binaural, beats, binaural, I can never say it.
Okay.
But it's a special sound, and it's supposed to, you can use it for losing weight, you can use it for going to sleep, and it's set at a certain level. And you know what? It was the only thing that worked in hospital because I was that uptight.
That
So
is so cool that you said that. It's funny that you said that. Another episode that we did where we brought in a guy who does that type of music,
yeah.
or he creates the music for cancer patients and for people who are in the hospital. So the background music that you hear, that was episode 93.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we actually sounded off of the episode with him playing that music. So you
Oh,
have some really
excellent.
great ideas that I hadn't thought of in quite a while. That it's that tone, and I guess that even tone and the beat of the music, it helps calm the soul. So
It
that's
does. And it was the only thing that worked. And I was so uptight. And it was the only time I was calm was while with that, and I'd fall asleep with it. And then as soon as it finished again, I'd wake up. So I'd have to keep putting it on because I just couldn't sleep
yeah,
in the hospital. So it was the only thing that
yeah.
kept me going. And it took me ages. I'd been in there about a week and a half, and I was like at the end of my tether.
I know you need that. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, it was. His name is Barry Goldstein, and he's worked with a ton of different people. So I'm sure he probably didn't create the music you were listening to, but he's created the music that's in a lot of the larger cancer centers in the states and other hospitals in the United States as well. So
That's
yeah, yeah,
interesting to know. So, and
yeah,
also people can come and listen to your podcast to get more practical steps anyway, can't they?
yeah. Yes, yes.
So In your experience, what would you say are the most effective strategies for managing menopause symptoms such as hot flashes, weight gain, and brain fog? I mean, brain fog was one of the worst symptoms for me.
Mhm.
It really stopped me working at my peak. I'd always had this really good memory and could, I could be on top of everything. And as operational lead, that's what you needed to be. You had
Right.
to have be scanning the horizon all the time to see what was going in all the different areas. And when I got brain fog, I really struggled to remember, and I was having to write everything down just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But that brain fog is quite debilitating, isn't it? When you're in the middle of something happening and your
Yeah.
brain just goes foggy and you just can't think. So, I'd love to know what you think some of the most effective strategies are.
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, you're exactly right. Especially like you're a woman in business. I can only imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I forget my kids' names still. I only have three to remember. But being a woman in business and stepping into that conference room and not being able to remember anything, or having a presentation in front of your boss and not being able to remember. So yeah, I think so. My most effective strategy, I go between relieving stress and gut health, but I've been recording some new episodes and kind of looking up gut health recently. I'm going to lean on the side of gut health, which is something that we often don't talk
Mm,
about. So if you want to eliminate the hot flashes and the night sweats, and make sure you're clearing up the brain fog and relieving yourself of anxiety, you need to take care of your gut. And again, we a lot of times we don't make that connection, but it is so critical. And some of the things that you can do for your gut health is eliminate or decrease your daily sugar intake, processed foods. Cooking at home really helps to make sure you have a healthy gut because then you know what you're eating. Getting rid of, alcohol or smoking or any extra drugs, and then also some simple things that you can do, like drinking room temperature filtered water, keeping a food journal so you'll know what could be upsetting your stomach. And I always prescribe to either lessening or decreasing dairy intake. So anything you can do to get your gut healthy, which is our second brain, that is going to help you with your perimenopausal and postmenopausal symptoms as
mhm.
well.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And I think we're finding out more and more about how it affects us. And certainly I've noticed because I had this major op in 2022 and I haven't been right
Mhm.
since. And then I've started taking some probiotics and it's all changed. And I'm like, what? That's
What?
amazing.
I Isn't that amazing? What? Yeah, I do. I still have seasons. I actually had one about a week and a half ago, and it kind of snapped. I'd gotten off track with my eating. We'd been going out to eat a lot. We were really busy, and life happens. So I had to introduce digestive enzymes and then a probiotic as well. And also I started doing pH balanced water. And I, all of a sudden I started feeling better because I knew my gut was off. I had a hot flash. I hadn't had one in months. I was telling my husband, I'm like, having a hot flash. She's like, I thought you didn't have those anymore. I said, I thought I didn't either because it had been so long, but my gut was not healthy. Got my gut in line, took some proactive steps to do that. And then, just like you said, the probiotic, I had some digestive enzymes.
Yeah.
Um, then the hot flashes went away again, and I started, I just
Yeah.
started feeling a ton better, but it all goes back to the gut.
Well, I can't wait to hear your episode when you record this. So can't wait to hear that. So you do need to let me know because then I can share it to my followers as well. So
Oh, awesome. I will do that. I will do that.
as a community builder, how do you create a supportive environment for women going through menopause? And why do you think this sense of community is so important?
Yeah, so I've been working with women one on one, and that question has come up a lot. Like, it feels like we need more community. So in June, I am going to actually launch my first community. It's called Navigating Menopause. And we are going to come together as a group of women to talk about what is going on, because I'll be the grocery store or standing in line at TJ Maxx last weekend. It feels like wherever I go, the subject comes up. People are talking about menopause, but maybe that one-on-one conversation is happening. They're not having that conversation with probably not a mom because the prior generation was not having this conversation. They may not be having it with a friend because they're not sure, if their friend is going through the same thing. Definitely not a coworker because they don't want to be stigmatized at work. So what we're doing is building this safe community where people can come in and talk about what's going on in their bodies. Beyond hot flashes, we're having problems with low libido. People are suffering with vaginal dryness, things that you don't want to potentially talk about to everyone or in a public setting. We're going to have a safe space for those folks. So at the end of this podcast, I'll give a little bit more information how folks can come to a free webinar and learn a little bit more about it. But I think community is really important. Without community, I wouldn't have been able to navigate this. So I had my family community, and those are the people that had to drive me to the doctors, drive me to the grocery store, fix my food for me, because it did just get that bad for me personally. And then I had my work community. Those are the people that I had to write grants at the time that knew something was going on. So maybe if I had to have an extra day or if I needed a little bit extra support in the work, I had that community. And then I had my church community as well, which was huge. So I had women praying for me and calling out healing over my body and helping me regain confidence in who I was. So I had these three separate communities. I want to pull that all together so women have one place to go because it's vital for us.
I think that sounds like a really good idea. So, do talk about it at the end. So, how do you help high performing midlife women balance their work and personal lives while navigating the challenges of menopause?
Yeah, so the same way through this community is going to be one way. One-on-one now, what we do is you come in because a lot of women come because they've gained weight. So I've gained weight. I know I need to get this weight off so I can feel better, or I'm anxious all the time. I need to relieve this anxiety. But what high performing business women need is really to start to understand, in my opinion, what they need is to understand, like, why is this happening? What's the root cause? Like, what's that spider that you need to kill? Like, you're taking care of the cobwebs, the small things, but what's that big giant spider that you need to kill? Is it that you're stressed out at work because of XYZ, the need to show up and be the best, that overwhelming need to prove that you are enough, that overwhelming need to be the breadwinner or to take care of everyone else? Once we can kind of work together and understand what that is and get to the root cause, everything else seems to fall in line because you dig out the bad roots and then you can start to see that branch grow, or you cut off the dead leaves or the dead stems and so forth, then that it can flourish. So we start there and then we work on what is right for your body. Because again, if someone would have said you need to eat all tropical fruits and you will be healed, I would have been even worse, because quote unquote fruit is good for you, right? But everything isn't good for everyone. So kind of figuring out what is working for you and for your body, and then start to slowly help you understand how you need to build in exercise and so forth, and then how you can be part of our community, or you can start to build the community of your own. I think one of the most important things that we walk through is a lot of times women assume that this is the end, when this is really like the beginning. Like, a lot of women have more financial freedom, more freedom of time during this time. So honing in on this new freedom is something that's really, really important during this time. And I help you walk through all of that.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds really good. So, what role do you believe exercise plays in managing menopause symptoms and overall health?
So I think it's really important to exercise, but that does not mean that you need to be preparing for a 5K or anything like that. I think every woman needs to have cardiovascular exercise. So that's walking, maybe jogging, running, and so forth. And the reason for that is because after menopause, when you're postmenopausal, your cardiovascular health can be impacted during this time. I think it's important that women stretch. So yoga, Pilates, just stretching exercise because we want our muscles to stay long and lean. And it's very, very important that we lift weights because we want to make sure that we're staying strong and staying balanced and that we're osteoporosis is also a problem as we age. We have so many problems as we get older, don't we, ladies? Osteoporosis can also be a problem. So lifting some type of weight, it doesn't have to be 25 pounds or even 10 pounds, just 3 to 5 pounds maybe. Lifting weight is super important as well. So exercise, cardiovascular, lifting weight, and then also stretching are really important during this phase of life. And you don't need to spend 3 hours at the gym every day. I usually go 3 to 4 days a week for my 50-minute class, and then I'm done. And then in the summertime, I walk a little bit more, but it's not an everyday tons of hours of time spent. It's just moving your body. And you may not like any of that. Maybe you roller skate, or maybe you take a dance class. That's an amazing, fun thing to do. Find people in your community, build that community around some physical activity, and that can help fill the bill for you.
Yeah, I have a client who does the dance swing fit dance
Yeah.
for 50-year-olds plus, and she's got an amazing community, and it is so popular, and that's what people need, isn't it? So really good. Yeah, and it's also low impact, so it's not going to hurt your joints and things like that. So yeah, really,
That's
really good to hear.
important. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and agree. I do walking, so because funnily enough, I had a heart attack when I'd just gone through the menopause.
Oh, yeah.
I suffer with angina now, but it's the angina is quite off and on. So sometimes I'll have it and sometimes I won't. It's very, very weird. And again, I think it goes down to some of the things you say about what you've been eating, tiredness, etc. So walking
Yeah,
is my constant, and certainly makes a difference. So yeah. So
yeah.
what advice would you give to women who are just beginning to experience menopause symptoms and really are feeling overwhelmed or unsure of where to go to for support?
So I would tell them to again think about this being just a new phase of life. It's not the end of life. That's the first thing. Get your mind right around menopause. And then I would either seek out a coach or at a minimum on your own, start to eliminate some of the things that we could eat when we were in our 20s, like pizza every night, drinking a beer or wine all the time. Like start pulling back on the sugar processed foods.
Yeah.
That is I think that will help you get to where you need to go, and it'll help you build that momentum so you can go further and start to exercise and so forth. But again, the very first thing is recognize that it's not the end, and then figure out if there's any stressors or anything going on in your body.
So do you cover this in your podcast? Is there an episode around that you could share, or several episodes?
Around like
But
the
when you
big,
first go into perimenopause?
we have not covered that. Like no, I have not. We have not talked about that, and that's a good one because I'm sitting here thinking, what does Q3 look like? And so that's a really good idea. All the topics have been things like, well, we do have one like how to turn back the clock with regenerative medicine and how to biohack. That's another one. Sugar and menopause.
So that's a
Um,
useful one. Yeah.
yeah, things like that. Also, workplace menopause in the workplace is really a huge thing for women. Like, how do you navigate that? What are the conversations you should be having with your boss and so forth? So those are really popular ones as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that
So,
one.
so there's plenty, but there is
Yeah,
an angle there that you could go from around, when you first get the symptoms, because most of the time you don't even realize that's what it is, do you? You
no,
So it's making people aware, and it's how do you get that conversation going so that when it happens, people don't think they've got some major illness. It's actually something that they can do something about.
yeah, and or be like me again.
Yeah.
That's why I started the podcast because there was no reason in the world that I should have gone to 18 different doctors. Like at some point, someone should have said it's potentially your hormones. Let's start understanding what's going on in your body. What are you eat? Because I was a vegetarian at the time, but I was one of those proud, cocky vegetarians. Like, I'm a vegetarian. So I'm sure people, when I walked in and said, I'm a vegetarian, people were like, oh, she's eating right. I was not eating for my body. My B's were deficient. I was deficient in magnesium, but no one said, oh, you're a vegetarian. That means that you probably aren't getting enough B. Perhaps your magnesium is off. Like, no one started to dig and ask me those questions. So those are the things that we throw out in the podcast and make you start to think about the questions that you should ask. And God love your gynecologists. I interview them all the time. They're some of the most amazing men and women, but they're not trained on menopause at the level that we assume that they are trained on menopause. So while you may be assuming that your gynecologist is giving you all the information he or she has, they probably are giving you only the information that they have. And there's so much more for you to learn. So listening to podcasts, I think, is a really good start to understand what questions you can ask to get the right answers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So
Mhm.
finally, looking ahead, what are your goals for expanding your work as a menopause educator and advocate? And how do you hope to continue making this positive impact in the lives of women going through this transition?
Yeah, so we have some legislation out there in the United States. UK does a much better job than us. Canada's right behind the UK. We're 12 steps behind. Feels like it. But we have some legislation out there from our current president that's providing some dollars for women's health. And menopause is actually a line item. But what I don't see happening is the conversation around why do particularly Black women and Latino women, why do they have a longer period of menopause? They start earlier and they have a rougher time. There's a report that actually shows that. But those conversations aren't happening. And I want to figure out why. Is it where you were raised, how you were raised? Was it the food that you ate? So I have a survey that is on my website. So if you go to hellohotflash.com and click on research, the survey is for all women, but it asks those questions. And my goal is to get enough information so that we all can be a part of the conversation and potentially make an impact on those dollars that will be spent around menopause. Part of my background, my 20 years in corporate America, I worked in legislative affairs. So I have relationships with some legislators. I've done some of that work in the past before. And I know if we get enough people to take that survey, then we'll have enough information in order to have our voice heard or at least get a seat at the table. So that's my next step. I really think there is more conversation that needs to be had, and we need to be respected at a higher level during this time of our lives.
Okay, so everybody, you'll give the link in a minute. And yeah, no, that sounds a really important way to be going forward. So good to hear. So, Stephanie, it's been really a pleasure to have you on this podcast. Do you want to just share your links of how people can get hold of you so that they know?
Sure. If you're interested in the group course, or you're interested in taking the survey, or just learning more about me and the work that I do, go to hellohotflash.com and all of the information is there.
That's brilliant. I really appreciated you coming on and love your practical tips as well. And yeah, pop over to Stephanie's podcast because I think it will really help you. This is the People Mentor signing off for today. Thank you for listening.